Hey guys, before we begin tonight's journey, take a moment to settle yourself. Let your body find its most relaxed position. Release any tension that's making you tight or stiff. Let your shoulders drop naturally and slowly put down the weight you've been carrying all day. Tonight, we will spend a slow evening in a castle in southern France. It's a time when minstrels rode their horses through the halls, bringing their songs with them. There is nothing here that needs your nervous attention. The story will unfold gently with the rhythm of your breath, just to guide you softly into sleep. If these quiet journeys help you find rest, you are warmly welcome to follow this channel. That way, another calm night like this will quietly come your way whenever you need it. Leave a quiet like or drop a few words below to tell us where you are listening tonight. Doing so helps others find these stories, but there is no rush to do any of that. You can wait until morning or whenever you feel like it. Right now, you do not need to do anything. At this moment, there is only the warmth surrounding you. The night is slowly falling. A long and gentle story is waiting to begin. Slowly close your tired eyes. Just close them. Let your breathing slow down. When you are ready, we will set out on a warm southern path, bathed in the golden afternoon light. Let me take you south to a corner of France where the sunlight is softer than anywhere else. The time is around the middle of the 12th century, during the warm months when the roads are dry and flat. This land is called the land of Occitania, named after the gentle word people there use for yes. Winters are short here, the fruit hangs heavy on the branches, and ancient Roman stones still stand among the vineyards. Northern France is colder, simpler, and has fewer smiles. But here, in this fragrant land, music has become the passion that noble men live for. I want you to picture in your mind a castle atop a low hill with its gates open to the evening. Word has come that a singer is on the way, a minstrel riding with his small band. Before he arrives, the whole castle already feels the anticipation. The hall is being swept and cleaned. The lady of the castle is thinking about how she will sit, what posture she will take. Tonight we will live in that waiting. Stay close to me, and we will watch it all slowly unfold. You will see how these singers live, and why a baker's son who can write a moving melody is welcomed like a prince. You will sit among the noble women who give these songs their full meaning. You will learn what a perfect lady should be like. We will get a glimpse inside the most peculiar courts of this country. The noble ladies sit there, judging matters of the heart and love. Their decisions carry the same gravity as any king's. After the singer continues down the road and leaves, we will stay a little while longer by the fire. The people in the castle will savour the old tales he has left behind. You do not need to do anything at all. There are no riddles to solve, and no twists waiting to trip you up. You only need to relax and let the story carry you forward. Imagine what it would feel like to walk into that hall, to know there once was a complete art form dedicated entirely to praising women like the one beside you. See a seasoned knight grow shy in a single glance. Watch a clever lady weigh his poetry as carefully as she would a bolt of cloth. It is a small, warm, even slightly silly world, but it takes itself seriously. Being allowed inside brings a deep sense of peace and ease. Sink even deeper now. On the southern hills, the light is turning golden, the gates are open, and somewhere down the path a song grows nearer, clear and sweet. Let's walk toward it together, with the chill of daylight fading and nightfall drawing near. Let's start slowly from a place where the air is warm. Follow me southward to the south of France. This countryside lies just below a long and gentle line. That line stretches all the way from the mouth of the Garonne River to the Alps. The first thing you notice is the light. The light here is different. It is softer and more golden than anywhere in the grey and dull north. It lingers long in the evening, spreading over the mountains as if it is in no hurry at all. You walk quietly along the road, feeling the heat still held in the cobblestones. The dust is fine and pale, rising in little clouds beside your feet. On both sides of the road, rows of grapevines stretch out in long green lines, their leaves covered in dust and the fruit beginning to swell. Fig trees lean against low walls. From somewhere beyond your sight, a goat's bell rings once and then fades, and the sound of cicadas fills the silence again. This is a land well cared for by the sun, one that seems to carry no memory of cold. If you had stood on this very road many centuries ago, in the time of the Roman legions, you would see much the same countryside. The Romans loved this corner of the world. They settled here long before they ruled the northern lands. They simply called it their province, the one place that was definitely theirs. From that ancient word, the whole region takes its name. Even today we call it Provençal or Provence. Look closely as you walk, and you can still see their traces. The Romans never completely left. Here, a ruined stone arch stands at the edge of a field, half swallowed by ivy. There, the skeleton of an old amphitheatre rises up in a small town. It is far too large for the houses around it. It was built to hold crowds who have long since turned to dust. In Arles, in Nimes, in Avignon, these vast relics from an ancient world sit quietly among brand new streets. The people who live beside them hang laundry in their shadows and graze animals nearby, treating them as a normal part of life. Why did so much survive here, while the north was reduced to rubble and forgotten? Part of the answer lies in the sea. The coastal city of Marseille was already very old while Rome was still young. Greeks and seafarers from further east founded this trading port. No matter who ruled it, it remained a harbour. In those years, northern France was cut off and inward-looking after long wars, but the south kept a window open to wider waters. Ships still came from the east, from Italy, and along the bright Mediterranean coast. With the ships came goods, but also something harder to name, a habit of connection, a memory of city life and leisure. In Marseille's waterfront market shaded by awnings, you can see this clearly. There is silk that has travelled half the known world, unfolding like sunshine. There are spices the north never bothered to remember by name, sold spoonful by spoonful from small bags, coloured glass, dyes, and sweet dried fruits from distant shores. A merchant stands among the crowd, hearing 3 or 4 languages at once. Just the smells tell you something true. This is not some closed or fearful corner of the earth. It still belongs to a vast world. The people here never fully fell into coarseness. By the standards of their age, they remained softer, more pleasure-loving. They loved colour, music, fine fabrics, good manners, and the little refinements the harsh north did not bother with. You can taste it from an old story about an early French king. A devout northern king married a southern bride. His court's starchy clerics were shocked by her lively entourage. They wrote fearfully of improper clothes and irreverent songs. What truly shocked them was just bright southern cheerfulness. Even today you can hear that difference in the words themselves. At that time, France did not speak a single language. The languages of north and south were so different that people on one side barely understood the other. The simplest test was in the smallest word for yes. In the north they had one word. In the south they said OC with a gentle open sound. The south came to be known as the Oc country, named after that soft way people agreed. Long after, a poet who wrote about his world grouped these languages. He used that same little word to sort them out. He wrote some said oki, some said oil, and some said sigh. The first were people from southern France, the second were from the north, the third, Italians. 3 ways of saying yes, 3 peoples, 3 different mouths. We broadly call the whole southern countryside Provence, even though the real Provence is only a small part. The name just spread like a loud call. Over time, a person from Toulouse or Bordeaux came to be called a southerner just as naturally as one from Arles. There is a second gate here, opening toward the west, toward the setting sun. Beyond the mountains lies Spain. In those days, much of Spain was controlled by peoples called Moors by Christians. No matter what priests said, they had a truly brilliant civilization, learned and refined with libraries, gardens, and an ancient love of poetry. For generations, war crept along that border, but so did trade and travel, and ideas found ways through even the tightest defences. Arab songs and instruments crossed the mountains. Along with them came new kinds of melodies and ways of plucking strings. They drifted north into this warm land and were welcomed, becoming part of the local culture. Marriage brought these connections closer, as it often does. The crown of Provence passed by inheritance to a Count of Barcelona. In this way, these two sun-warmed lands were bound together even tighter. Singers, craftsmen, and fashionable travellers moved freely between them. None of this was planned. It came as naturally as warmth spreading through a room, a little exchange at a time, until a whole region grew its own style. From that style, almost without warning, something remarkable grew. While the North only had dull chronicles and dry saintly tales, the South gave birth to true literature. It was rich, subtle, and stunningly skilled. What is strangest about it is that it seemed to have no childhood. Unlike young art that stumbles and crawls slowly forward, from the first singer we can name, it was nearly perfect. Its rhythm was sure, its forms complex. It was as if the South had waited long to sing, and when it opened its mouth, it already knew the song. It sang in different forms, each with its own purpose and name. Laments, mourning a dead lord or lost love. Debate songs, where two voices argued over a subtle question, stanza by stanza, each bound by rhymes set by the other side. These questions were rarely heavy, like should a lover speak or stay silent? Does separation make the heart cold or warm? Can a poor man love a noble lady? Then sharp songs, stinging songs used to mock enemies or urge people to fight. These were not random doodles. They were carefully crafted with rules as strict as any craftsman's. A man was judged by how cleanly he met those rules. Shaping such a song well was proof of yourself, as sure as a knight showing his skill with a lance. From all this came something I want you to remember, something that shaped everything after it. The South realized before anywhere else that music and poetry are art. They are not boring noise or tricks for servants to pass dull hours. They are art, worthy of a serious man's life work. And once something is honoured as art, a strange door opens. The question is no longer who your father is. It becomes whether you can do this well. Think about what that meant in an age built so firmly on ranks. In almost every other part of France, the line between lord and commoner was a wall no one climbed over. Peasants were peasants, merchants merchants, and that was that. But here, a beautiful melody was almost placed above everything, so a gift could carry a man over that wall. If you could write a song that made a noble woman's eyes shine, who your father was suddenly mattered far less. I do not want to paint it as too perfect. It is not some ideal fairness where birth is forgotten and only merit counts. Most famous singers were still people of status. Those backed by land could afford the life easily. But even so, the door was open, and a few remarkable men stepped through. The son of a baker, the son of a fur trader, a man who had nothing but voice and an ear could find himself a welcomed guest. The respect for art worked both ways. It not only reached downward, but climbed upward too. It was not shameful for a noble to create songs. Among southern singers you could count many lords and counts. Some had royal blood, even a few crowned kings. When a king was willing to be judged as a poet, you knew the thing was truly honoured. That openness is a grace unique to the South. By the end of tonight, you will see what it made possible. This life came with a price, woven into its charm. People expected this kind of singer to live with style. He kept a trained little band around him. He travelled in fine clothes and spent freely. Many talented men wasted their fortunes this way. In the end, all they had was their song. One old scholar complained bitterly about such men. He warned that one who threw himself into the minstrel's art would marry a wife named Poverty and have a son named Shame. You can be sure those singers ignored him and kept singing their songs. Now let me introduce you to the most important figure of our evening, though she is not in this hall and will never be here. Imagine a girl growing up in this countryside, in the bright city of Bordeaux. She inherited more of the southern lands than anyone living. Her grandfather was the first great minstrel. He was a bold and laughing lord who roamed this land, creating verses that broke hearts and troubled the church. He passed down a love of music and a fiery, restless temper to his descendants. They were a family known for that. People talked about them as a family addicted to pleasure and overflowing with talent. They were sensitive in feeling and indifferent to the dull rules that bound quiet people. Such blood does not raise peaceful souls, but in its own way it made a soul worth remembering. This girl had both. She loved poetry, song, and the warm life her people knew. Her name was Eleanor, and the land she ruled was Aquitaine. She did not stay in the south. Taken when she was young, she married a northern king. He was a solemn and devout man. His cold city of Paris must have seemed dark and dull to her. By all accounts, they were a mismatch. She was bright, and he was stiff. She was open-hearted, and he narrow. He was always drawn to the quiet of monasteries. Everything about her looked back to the colours and music of home. Tonight we will not trace her long life. Just know one thing, wherever she went, she took the South with her. Her country's singers saw her as their own, their closest friend. Tonight you will hear a court immersed in love songs. You will hear ladies placed above all things, and a whole art devoted to praising them. When you hear these, remember where they grew. They grew here, in this warm, easy-going, pleasure-loving land. They grew among the bones of old Rome, by an open gate to the sea, born from a strange and generous love of beautiful melodies. The cold north will never create such things. Only the south, and only here, has these graceful and generous tunes. The light is dimmer now. The grapevines have changed from green to dusty gold. The first coolness rises from the ground, and on a low hill ahead, a castle waits. Its gates open toward the evening, and the hall has been tidied. You and I will soon go up there as the heat of the day fades away. For now, standing here on this dusty road, a moment more will do. Let this gentle countryside settle quietly around you like a held breath. The whole castle had known he was coming since noon. You can feel it in the way people wake up in this place. The rushwort on the hallway floor has already been replaced with fresh sprigs. A girl climbs a ladder to take down the dusty tapestries. She shakes them out in the courtyard until the dust floats in the light like gold. The kitchen noises are louder than usual, and the smells are richer. A boy is wiping a long table with a cloth. He works hard without being told. Today that table must shine. No one stays still. Even the dogs seem to know something is about to happen. Come stand with me at the main gate where we can see the road. The light has softened into evening's glow. Downhill, the path curves through the trees. A small cloud of dust appears. It is too neat for a flock of sheep and too small for an army. As it gets closer, shapes become clear. There are horse riders and pack animals moving at a leisurely, unhurried pace. Even so far away, you can see the colours. These are no plain travellers in brown clothes. There is red, a splash of blue, and maybe a dull gleam from some silverware. Along with the warm air comes the first faint sound. Someone is singing down the road, not the singer himself. He would not announce his arrival that way. These are his musicians, sent ahead a few steps to fill the road with lively sound. They have a set song prepared just for this moment, a cheerful brag. As they come up the hill, bits of their tune drift to us like fragments. When you piece it together, it's a riddle offered as a joke. They sing that they carry a wonder. They say it is a healing salve. It cures all sickness and calms troubled hearts, no less than easing bodily pain. It is packed in a golden jar studded with rare jewels, which they carry with their master. They promise just one glance brings joy beyond words. Then they reveal the trick. The salve is nothing but their master's music. The jeweled jar is the group of finely dressed men carrying him on the road. They ask if the kind folk of this house will let it be opened. It is flashy, self-aware of its flashiness, and that is half its charm. By the time they reach the gate, the family has come out to hear. There is laughter and light applause. This boast has done its job. It turns a weary afternoon into a celebration. If you watch closely, you can see who feels his coming most deeply. It is the women of this house. The lady has changed clothes, no longer hiding it. The young women have found reasons to linger near the hall. They are neither foolish nor in love with a stranger they have never met. But when these songs sound, they know what they are about. They know they are the whole reason these songs exist. A singer who praises no woman has no songs to sing. The women wait with a special brightness, half for fun, ready to be sung about. Now the singer himself is riding up, and you instantly see he is no ordinary bard. His dress is almost knightly. His cloak is made of fine fabric, cut wide and dyed a truly valuable colour. His tack and bridle shine brightly. He sits in the saddle as if never doubting he will be welcome. In fact, he is likely a knight in the truest sense of the word. In this land, the two overlap closely. The name used for this kind of singer is almost freely interchangeable with the name for a horse-riding gentleman. Songwriting is seen as a knightly profession, fitting for a warrior. They say a famous singer found no lord willing to knight him, so he seriously knighted himself. It's worth pausing here to notice a difference people keenly felt at the time. Not every instrumentalist is the same kind of person. There is the creator, the one who finds a song. He shapes the words and pairs them with a fresh tune from his mind. Then there are the travelling musicians, who learn and perform his work but do not compose. The creator's status is much higher. Discovering a new melody is true art, and that brings a person lasting respect. The musicians are skilled and valued, but they are disseminators, not creators. There is a sad twist here. A creator who squanders his wealth may end up just another player in someone else's band. The same talent that can lift a baker's son may not keep a spendthrift lord forever on top. His musicians dismount, carefully unloading their instruments. These are real professionals. There is a small harp, a long-necked thing strung with strings played by a bow, pipes, and a small drum for rhythm. Each piece is treated like a treasure, and it is one. A player's whole status depends on what he can pull from these bits of wood and gut. I want you to notice one thing about this singer. It tells you a lot. He is dressed richly, but he has not come here for pay. That sounds strange to us, and that is the point. He would gladly accept a gift from a great lord, a horse, a cloak, a ring set with stones. But coins counted out like payment for a coachman or smith, he would refuse with real offence. He does not sing for hire. He sings, as the proud legend says, only for love of the art and nothing else. The idea of trading art for coins never enters his mind. You can see what this means in plain terms. Only those who own land or have generous patrons can afford to live this way. He must be well off. this life shines with a casual glow that year after year quietly eats into his fortunes. On the host's side, there are duties to fulfill as well. A lord is bound by every rule of his world to treat guests well. The more honoured the guest, the warmer the welcome. A renowned singer choosing your hall over another's brings honour to you. If he is slighted, the shame is yours, not his. The fine cloth he receives, his place at the high table, and the gift awkwardly pressed into his hand when he leaves, these are not really payment. They are the courtesy due between gentlemen. A truly respected singer might even receive a splendid gown from the Lord's wardrobe. It is worn once, still warm, then passed on as a sign that words alone cannot carry. Think of the fine cloth, the high table seat, the parting gifts. None of this is true payment. The whole graceful dance makes everyone pretend no money changes hands, though a hefty hospitality cost is quietly paid. The hall is full now. The lord and lady sit at one end, high above. The family is seated along the room's long bench, on stools, on the floor, by the door. The light is low and golden, filled with smoke and the scent of cleared dishes. The singer takes a seat where all can see him. His musicians settle behind. He begins to play. The first song is, of course, a love song. Almost all his songs end up about love. He praises a lady's fair skin, bright hair and eyes. He sings that when she turns away, the world goes dark for him. It's exaggerated, a bit absurd, and very beautiful. No one in the room thinks it strange. As he sings, you feel the hall lean toward him. This is what they have waited all afternoon to hear. For variety, he sings others. He sings a lament, slow and heavy, for someone lost. The room falls quiet, sorrowful in an almost pleasant way. Then he exchanges verses in a debate song with one of his musicians. The two argue over a small, silly inner question. They follow each other's rhymes and the hall laughs at their wit. Each kind of song has its own shape and mood. A good singer moves among them like a chef serving courses, knowing what to bring and when. Now let me tell you about a special singer whose story shows what this strange open world can do. There was a man whose father was a castle baker. He wasn't born owning all this. By the rules of his time, he should have lived and died at the lower table. He should have spent his life kneading dough by the oven's heat. He should not have ever sat at the high table, except maybe to serve a dish. But this boy had talent. He could write songs, not just so-so songs. He could write songs so well people forgot to ask where he came from. A local great lord noticed him, promoted him, and gave his talent room to grow. His name was Bernard, and the castle was Ventadour. His boldness did not stop at the doors of country lords. He dedicated songs to the greatest lady of his time. She was the queen who came from warm southern lands and wore 2 crowns in turn. Think what that means. A baker's son dedicates love songs to a queen, and instead of being whipped for impertinence, he is heard. Old records say he sent his songs without any rebuke. He was not the only one to pass through that narrow door. There was a singer who started as a fur merchant's son in Toulouse. He was the quirkiest of a restless tribe. He ended up a friend of kings, welcomed in the court of a singing king far away in Spain. A rude little baron, not nobly born, treated the king's son as an equal. He gave them teasing nicknames like a friend and was loved rather than punished. Under usual order, none of this could happen. Here, it happens now and then, and no one thinks the world is ending. I do not want to make it sound like a fair world. It is not. The baker's son is a rare exception, not the rule. Most born beside the oven die beside the oven, unknown. These exceptions are real, but almost only possible here. A door stands open just a crack where everywhere else it is a wall. Through this crack, a few walk, whose songs outlast any lord who refused their fees. Songs do travel and endure. A good song is never locked inside the hall where it was first sung. Musicians carry it to the next house and the next. Other singers learn it and make it their own. A tune heard in one castle may be heard a year later, a valley or more beyond. It will be sung by someone who never met its original creator. In this way, a single night's work can outlive its maker. The man himself might squander his wealth and fall into poverty, but still his best songs travel warmly on the road without him. They are welcomed everywhere and ask nothing. Each time they are sung, his name travels a little farther. The singer in our hall is not Bernard, but when he sings, he carries that same strange freedom. For these few hours in this firelit room, whose son he is does not matter. What matters is whether the next verse truly moves us. When good weather ends, he will mount his horse and ride on. When the roads are easy, he will travel from hall to hall, bringing his songs as goods for the market. When cold comes, he will return to his own house. But tonight, he belongs to us. The fire burns steady and bright now. The singing slows, as always happens in a long night's passing. The Lord nods his head. The lady rests her chin in her hand, listening. A child sleeps on someone's lap, and no one wakes him. The singer's voice has almost dropped to a whisper now. It gently blankets the room, asking nothing in return. We will leave him there in the warm half-light, his final music settling like dust over the hall. Autumn nights always come early, and the darkness had completely fallen over Clare. Beyond the castle's high walls, the fields vanished into the night, coldness spreading over the land, making the rooms warmed by the fireplace feel more precious and cosy than ever before. She had already put aside the main public affairs of the day. After enjoying a lighter dinner than the midday feast, the manor settled into quiet. Candles were lit in the rooms where people were still present, while the rest of the castle slowly sank into shadow. For the lady of this estate, this was the softest time of day, a long and slow path toward rest that, like much in her life, began with giving. Let us follow her through this last hour and see how this ordinary day quietly draws to a close. At the front gate, the poor received food. This was a custom of every noble family and a duty imposed on the wealthy by the church. Leftovers in the house should not be wasted, but shared with those who had nothing. The day's scraps, cold dishes, torn bread pieces, and remaining good food from the pots were brought to the gate. The local poor waited there, always aware that a devout household would offer aid. Even the way alms were given was carefully considered. Many years ago, a wise clergyman warned a distinguished countess to ensure that her charity truly reached the poor, the sick, and the beggars, and was not secretly intercepted halfway by idle servants. A truly noble lady made sure her charity was real. Feeding the hungry with one's surplus was seen as one of the clearest commands for anyone who possessed wealth beyond their own needs. She had much, and she chose to give. On certain special days, this charity became more generous and deliberate. In her long years of widowhood, she had developed the habit of making special distributions on specific days, handing out fixed amounts of bread and herring to the poor. It was a small but steady act of kindness, faithfully repeated through the passing years. Among these days was one to commemorate someone who had passed long ago. Each spring on this day, she distributed bread and fish in his name so that those he had fed could pray for his soul, and his memory was quietly carried on in the gratitude of strangers. There was a tenderness in this, a blending of charity and remembrance, serving the dead by nourishing the living. Giving in someone's name let them live a little longer in this world. Throughout her life, she held those she loved tightly with this gentle kindness. In the nightly alms, I find the truest answer to the wealth flowing through this entire estate. We see carriages arriving, warehouses full, exquisite furs and fine wine brought from distant places, and rents collected from hundreds of farms. It's easy to see only this luxury and call it greed. But it is this very gate, which absorbs all the world's riches, that at every evening returns the bread to the dark, handing it to any hungry soul who comes begging. This was no accident or afterthought. In the deep consensus of that age, everyone understood. The more you receive, the more you owe back. Wealth must come with responsibility just as surely as a carriage carries its load. She never called herself generous. She said she was only doing her duty, what anyone in her position must do. Perhaps that is the better word. Admittedly, compared to the vast fortunes of a noble family, the alms seemed insignificant, a few loaves and fish amid all the fine wines, furs and sprawling lands. No one thought it should be otherwise then. Whatever the amount, this giving was real, happening every day. For the poor souls fed at the gate, it was no small matter. Some nights, it was the difference between hunger and fullness. At night, the manor's gates were opened far wider than one might imagine. Besides the poor at the gate, there were guests at the table and by the fire, many of whom were God's people. Hosting the religious groups nearby and clergy from the local monastery had always been her custom. Friars from Claretown itself, mendicants from nearby Sudbury, and sometimes monks from as far as Colchester, Ipswich and Norwich received a meal and warm welcome during their travels. It was the same wherever she lived. Different monasteries, monks and nuns would take turns as her honoured guests. Clergy were not the only ones welcomed. A travelling priest, a passing merchant, or a stranger with no name left behind could all find a meal and a bed in her hall, rarely questioned about who they were or where they were going. Keeping the gates open and not turning away any respectable visitor after dark was deeply woven into what it meant to live a good and great life. Her connection to the church ran far deeper than an evening's hospitality. In the fullest sense, she was a female benefactor of the church, a donor and protector of religious communities, the most important being the mendicants in Claretown. The church there was closely linked with her family, the resting place for family members who had passed away. Year after year she gave them money and goods, expecting in return prayers for her noble family's souls. To her, supporting such a monastery was not some separate act apart from her role as lord of the manor. It was part of it, a sacred response to worldly power, paying in money for prayers, which guarded the wealth gathered by her officials. People expected a noble lady to be a pillar of the local church, and she was that pillar, a generous pillar whose whole life was spent praying and caring for the world with her own hands. Sometimes her evening companions were even more distinguished. Women of her rank did not just host mendicants and the poor. Sometimes the greatest person in the land could be her guest, a duke or even a prince with royal blood, sitting at her table alongside monks from humble monasteries. Let us not forget, she was a king's granddaughter and heir to a great legacy in this kingdom, and the powerful knew well her influence. This table that once welcomed a prince could on another night host an unknown traveller sitting there purely by the grace of charity. This is the scale of a great hall, holding the highest and lowest in the land within a single week, refusing no one. Not only clergy and strangers were fed at her expense, the labourers around the estate naturally received food as well. The coachmen, the roofers, carpenters, ploughmen, and even the women gathering fresh rushes for the floors would be treated in the hall. It was a simple custom of the estate. Working even one day for a noble lady meant she provided the food, and the hall silently accepted them all as equals. Through these small but enduring acts of kindness, the night gently approached its end. Guests in the hall dispersed, the fire was turned low, people in the manor slowly withdrew, coachmen returned to their corners, women went back to bedrooms, the spacious rooms became quiet and dim one by one. In the lady's own bedroom, the fire burned low and warm, a single candle chased away the dark. The long day's work, praying, calculating, governing and giving, was finally behind her. Nothing left undone, only the warm room, the faint fire, and the peaceful time remained. Every night, this place was closely guarded. A great household was also a small fortress, and darkness was not always kind. The outside gate was barred and the keys put away. Watchmen might be stationed, a few awake while others slept. The greatest worry was fire. Every house built largely of wood inside stone saw fire as the chief threat. The fireplace was turned low, not extinguished, but covered to a safe red glow, ready to be rekindled before dawn. Doors were closed, shutters drawn, candles in empty rooms snuffed out one by one. Gradually, the lively and busy manor folded into its quiet and watchful nightly state. Above all this, in her bedroom, the lady let her last lamp burn longer than the rest. It is worth noting how her day combined the secular and the sacred without conflict. She lived as a great lord, commanding people, money, and land. She also lived as a devout woman, praying in the cold before dawn and giving alms in the dark after dinner. To us, these might seem like two very different lives, power and piety, awkwardly joined, but to her they were seamlessly one. Wealth was a gift from God and had to be accounted for. Power was a trust to be faithfully fulfilled. Prayer and charity were not escapes from lordship, but its truest expressions. She saw no seam. To her, there was none. Above all the alms, there was one gift combining care for the sacred and for the future. Far away in Cambridge, young scholars gathered there to learn, and she poured her heart and wealth into founding a college, a hall for scholars that would carry her name and purpose long after her life had passed. Supporting such a place was one of the greatest things a person of her wealth could do, turning a lifetime of fortune into learning and prayer, so even after the giver turned to dust, the knowledge and prayers could continue for many generations. She provided vestments for its chapel, dishes for its tables, and support for its scholars, building it strong enough to stand for centuries. Perhaps among all her acts in a long life, this was the one she hoped would have the deepest impact, a flame lit in her own time, meant to burn on endlessly. Before sleep came the last prayer of the day. The church set morning and evening prayers. The prayer at dusk was vespers, and the final night prayer was compline, a quiet prayer to close out the day and entrust the coming sleep to God. Just as morning began with prayers in the dark, so the night wove time to its close with these known and ancient words. She might walk once more to the small chapel beside her bedroom, or pray right where she sat by the fire, her maidens nearby. However it was done, the day's cycle was complete and closed. It began in prayer and ended in prayer. Between those two lay the long and crowded hours, a waking manor, full carriages, grand halls, warm bedrooms, letters by candlelight, all gathered up and laid down before the same God she greeted before dawn. In her bedroom, surrounded by objects left from long years, a canopy bed, chests, and precious little things accumulated over time. Some she had calmly and thoughtfully promised to the college she longed to build far away in Cambridge. She hoped to leave it the bed she now slept in, and the fine vestments from her chapel, so that her care for it would continue after her death, as the unseen scholars slept and prayed with things that once belonged to her. It was a way of reaching beyond life's end, a giving that lets time keep flowing past its limit. Tonight, this fine bed belonged to her alone, warm in the last faint firelight, waiting. Only one candle remained now, a tiny flame, the twin of one she'd seen just hours ago on a cold morning, was the last light burning in the pitch-dark manor. Silence ruled the house. The fire had turned to ash. Outside, the fields were dark and still, rivers flowing unseen underground as they did before dawn, and as they would after her passing. At last, she was ready to sleep. The candle was brought to her bedside, and for a moment its small glow illuminated the whole room. Carved bedposts, the canopy, and the calm face of a woman, as this ordinary yet extraordinary day came to its close. The flame was gently blown out. Darkness poured in. soft and complete. In the midnight stillness, the Lady of Clare lay down to rest, and the great family she ruled slept safely, quietly, and intact all around her. In this world, I still want to take you into a room, one of the most peculiar ones there is. It is not the grand hall with the burning hearth and the singers. It is a quieter room, somewhat secluded, with good lighting and cushioned chairs. The men of the house are not here, or only a few are present, retreating to the corners by the wall. This afternoon the room belongs to the women. Several esteemed noblewomen gather together, and they are neither idle nor just chatting. They meet to hold a court session, one that will solemnly and thoroughly decide on a matter, love itself. Let me explain. This sounds half fictional, and perhaps partly it really is. In this country, love is elevated as the highest art, and among these noble women a curious custom emerged. They would occasionally sit in court session. Someone would bring before them a question, a dispute, or an emotional knot no one else could untangle. The ladies would listen to the arguments. They would weigh the issues. Like any judge in a regular court, they would solemnly deliver a verdict. The only difference was what the court dealt with. While other courts might decide who owns a piece of land or who owes a debt, this court judged what is right in the heart. The ladies presiding over these gatherings were no ordinary people. They were the greatest women of their time. In the leading seats of these courts sat the queen we already know, the southern air. She brought her love of poetry into every hall she ruled. Sitting alongside her in reputation was her own daughter, the Countess of Champagne. She was as sharp and refined as her mother. She was a great patron of the best storytellers of the North. Ancient records say it was she who got the smartest storyteller of that time to start working by commissioning him to create a great romance about a knight and a queen. She even gave him the theme and meaning it should carry. The poet half joked that the lady pushed all the burden onto him, and he only supplied the labour. These courts were far from idle. While the ladies judged love that afternoon, they were quietly commissioning the books that would teach other parts of the world how to feel love. Others lent their names and judgment to these courts as well. A great viscountess from the south, a countess from northern lands. These were women of status and learning whose words carried weight and who treated this whole affair with the utmost seriousness. Can you imagine what one of these sessions might be like? A case is brought forward. Maybe it is a real entanglement, or maybe it was made up for the pleasure of debate. The question might go like this. A lady has a respectable, loyal lover. Her own husband, though dull and awkward, has finally begun to court her like a lover. What should she do? Or this. A man loves a lady who does not return his feelings, and he only asks to be allowed to continue loving her in despair. Out of courtesy, is she obliged to let him? These are the matters placed before the court, debated with such seriousness you'd think the fate of the kingdom depended on it. The parties often argue their views themselves. They especially love a delicate question argued with finesse. One side defends the lover, the other opposes. The ladies listen, lean in close, then whisper. Then the court's chairwoman gives the verdict, sometimes brief, sometimes with a small speech explaining the reasoning. The ruling is binding, at least in the elegant game they all are playing. To defy the verdict of the court on love is to brand yourself as uncultured. If a case is too tricky for one gathering, it can be sent to a more distinguished lady for final judgment. Like a tough legal case moving to a higher court, a question too subtle for a local court might travel all the way until it reaches the Queen herself. Let me tell you a complete case, verdict and all, so you can see the outline. It is said that a man loved a lady loyally and long. Then, as often happens to ladies, she was married off to another man. The question came before the court. Did the marriage end his right to keep loving her? Was his old devotion cancelled by a wedding? After consideration, the ladies ruled against the marriage's effect. They decided his love had not ended. New bonds made for land and family could not undo a love freely given long ago. That loyal lover kept his rights. You can hear, even in this small ruling, the firm line they would draw anywhere between choices of the heart and worldly arrangements. Now, a court must have laws, and this court had its own unique code. Someone took the trouble to write them down. A clergyman, attached to one of these great courts, created a full code for love. He compiled it into a book on the subject. He collected the rules these gatherings seemed to live by and listed them one by one like any solemn legislation. There were dozens of them. The book itself is a curious thing worth mentioning. Through much of it, the clergyman plays the patient love tutor. He explains how to win love, how to keep love, and how lovers of all ranks should speak and behave. He writes down laws, reports famous rulings, all very seriously. Then at the end, he takes a complete turn. He warns readers that love ultimately is a trap, a road to sorrow and sin best avoided. Whether he was serious or simply yielding to what a clergyman was expected to say, no one is sure. The book faces both ways, like many things in this world. One hand teaches the art, the other waves it away. Its laws are sometimes charming, sometimes ridiculous, sometimes astute, sometimes quite sad. Together, they give you the clearest picture we have of what this strange love was supposed to be like. Let me give you a few examples in plain language so you get their flavour. One law says no one can truly love two people at once. It rules the heart can only hold one. Another claims that love openly shown rarely lasts, which is just an old fear of gossip turned into solemn code. Another teaches that a true lover is always nervous, a little afraid, and pales when the beloved appears. Someone too comfortable, too certain, is not truly in love. One law states love must always grow or fade. It can never be still and satisfied. There is a cold truth folded into that. There is even a law about jealousy. The code declares that love without a hint of jealousy is not real love. Someone who does not feel even the slightest jealousy does not truly care. There are many laws in the same tone, each piercing in its little truth. One says easily, one love is rarely valued, and things that cost nothing are quickly discarded. Another teaches that a new love drives away an old one because the heart is a house that only holds one guest. Another warns that true love robs a man of appetite and sleep. Whether then or now, anyone in love will tell you that. One law is gentler than all the rest. It says nothing forbids a lady from being loved by two men or a man from being loved by two ladies, as long as the heart itself is not divided. They go on like this, dozens of short clauses. It is a code of laws never written in any real legal code, only in the book of the heart. You can smile at these laws, and you should. Just a little smile, but you can also feel beneath them a real and careful observation of the human heart. Whoever wrote these rules watched closely how lovers actually behaved. These laws wear the solemn robes of a court. Beneath the robes they are a set of clever, slightly sad notes on desire. Now I will tell you the most famous verdict among them, the one that still makes people sit up straight. A question was posed to the Countess of Champagne, the quick-witted daughter of the Southern Queen. The question was simple but huge. Can true love exist between husband and wife? It seems like a strange question that should not even be asked. Of course, marriage is where love belongs, but the lady considered it very seriously, and her answer was exactly the opposite of what you would expect. No, she ruled. True love cannot exist between married people. Then she gave her reasons, the very core of this whole strange world we have been walking through. She explained that love must be freely given. It is a gift offered by one free heart to another, owing nothing and forced by nothing. That is its entire nature and value. But husband and wife do not freely give to each other. They are bound. They owe each other loyalty as a duty sworn and demanded. She reasoned that what is given out of obligation is not the same as what is freely and precious freely offered by a lover to his lady. By the court's calm logic, the deepest love cannot survive within the very bond meant to hold it. It can only live outside, in the free air, given because it is chosen, not because it is owed. This verdict was quoted again and again many years later, half with wonder, half with controversy. It is that kind of saying that outlives the one who first spoke it. It is a shocking verdict, and I will not pretend it is a comfortable one. More than anything, it shows how these people placed love and marriage in two completely separate rooms. Marriage is for land, for family, for cautiously joining one estate to another. Love is for songs, for the court, for free choice and devotion that no contract can command. We do not have to agree with it. We are simply looking in from far away, seeing how a strange and elegant world arranged its emotions. There is one honest thing to say about these courts, which is their most interesting. We do not fully know how real they were. That is the truth, and admitting it feels refreshing. Scholars have argued about this for a long time, and they still do. Some believe the courts of love were real and formal. They say noble women really did gather, judge and rule as a custom of the time. Others think the whole thing was lighter, a carefully designed indoor game, an activity to entertain clever people during long afternoons, half serious and half play. Some suspect most of it existed only on paper. It has survived in the books of those who like to imagine such a charming institution. The most likely answer is that it was all of these in different places and times. Somewhere, there surely was a real noble woman giving a true ruling. Elsewhere, the form was used for evening amusement and nobody took it seriously. And in the books, it was organised and expanded to be grander than it ever was in real life. The courts of love hover where their owners hover. They linger somewhere between reality and imagination, and are never fully one or the other. Perhaps that is the most fitting truth about them. A world built its highest art around a love half real, half dreamed. It is hard to expect such love to be judged in any ordinary solid court. Of course, the courts themselves are half real, half dream. Of course, we cannot fully grasp them. We cannot say for sure on which day, in what room, and how a ruling was made. They were made of the same soft and shining stuff as the songs. They kept the habit of a song, slipping away just as you reached out your hand. The light in the room has now turned amber. The ladies are standing up. Their afternoon verdict is done, and they slowly move towards the hall's warmth and music. Whatever was decided here will be talked about and mostly forgotten by tomorrow morning. We will stand a moment in the gradually empty room, where the cushions still bear the shapes of their seats. We will also slowly turn back toward the hearth, carrying with us this story of how they loved, the most peculiar vision of all. We have just spent an evening accompanied by singers and ladies. Now, let us turn our attention to the men who strive to turn into reality the promises once made only in songs. Singers are often warriors too. The very person who composes gentle verses by the fireside may be a horse-mounted knight by day. He wears a sword at his waist and rides a war-horse trained for fierce battle. He enters that tougher world together with his lady. He doesn't leave her behind in the song. He carries his longing for her on the road and makes her the reason for everything he does there. This is the knight who acts as the lady's defender, and he deserves our close attention. Imagine the journey of such a man. Like an adventurous wanderer, he rides his horse through the countryside, carrying the lady's name as his banner wherever he goes. In gatherings where knights charge one another in tournaments for sport and honour, he fights in her name. He swears that no living woman in the world could compare to her. Along the long roads, he faces whatever destiny throws at him and dedicates the outcome to her. Even in faraway wars, in foreign lands across the seas, he tells himself that everything he endures is for her. After bearing all that fate has in store, he finally returns home. Along the way, he sings for her, with both bright victory songs and low mournful tunes. He comes to claim her reward, which may be nothing more than a word of thanks. He also carries with him a token from her, displayed where all can see. maybe a sleeve or a glove or a ribbon she gave him. When entering the tournament, he ties it onto his arm or helmet. It is a bright little flag showing whose man he is. When he performs well, onlookers know in whose name he does so. When he is thrown from his horse, battered and wounded, he suffers those injuries for her. The token is just a scrap of cloth. It transforms a rough contest of strength into more of a tribute. It is an offering placed at the lady's feet, spoken in the language these men understand best. In this light, it is a lovely and innocent thing. Before we face it honestly, we can let it keep that charm for a while. A world full of a whispered poetry, graceful ladies, music, warm light, and loyal service. There is real magic in it, even as those who built it half doubted it, and we can too, at least for a little while. The deeper change these nights brought was quieter than any tournament and lasted much longer. To see it, you must look back at what came before them. The oldest songs of these warrior peoples were not about love at all. They were about battle, loyalty among men, and the glory of lords and their followers. Listen to the grandest chapters of those ancient war songs. The great story of a doomed band of knights making a last stand at a mountain pass. It is a magnificent work full of courage and sorrow. Throughout it there is almost no woman. There is one, the fiancée of a knight, who appears only briefly near the end. She learns her lover is dead and then dies herself, vanishing from the story. She has barely a few lines. In that older, harsher world, women were just a footnote to men's heroic deeds. Now put that next to this gentler new kind of story, nurtured by the milder South. Here, women are no longer footnotes, they are the heart of the story. There was a small but perfect tale from those years, part sung and part told, known by everyone in that world. It tells of two young lovers torn apart by harsh, strict rules set by their elders. The person we remember, the one the whole story revolves around, is not the young man at all. It is the girl. She is smart and brave. When he mostly sighs and suffers, she is the one who acts. The story is named for her and him together, but our eyes stay on her throughout. Their very different backgrounds were half the trouble, and her own origin remains a mystery for most of the tale. Yet from start to finish, she acts like the better and stronger one between them. When they are separated, she finds a way out. Using her own wit, she escapes, while the young man mostly just cries, waiting to be saved. In the end, every reader's heart belongs to her. The young man is likeable enough, but we follow this girl. We care about this girl. She is the one whose courage holds this whole bright yet fragile story together. It is a quiet revolution hidden inside a love story. The whole society began to realize that women were more interesting than the men around them. Women were no longer just the subject of stories. They had begun, in one place or another, to tell these stories themselves. It was in those years that a woman lived who wrote a whole book of short stories in poetic form. These were tales of love and adventure filled with wonder and magic, featuring fairies, strange transformations, and faithful hearts. As far as we know, she was the first to write, using the plain spoken language of her people. She did not use the deep Latin that scholars so jealously guarded. That too was a quiet revolution. Women who had kept silent while men sang about them now took up the pen for themselves. At least in one hall she shaped the stories others dreamed of hearing. Being sung about is sweet. Telling your own stories means something deeper. That was the real gift brought by singers and their knights, greater than any song alone. In that age, they changed what it meant for a woman to exist. In the older world, women were mostly trophies, things warriors won and kept, but once won, lost most interest. In the new world, she became the reason. She became the very purpose for creating songs and building deeds. A grown man would cross a kingdom to win her favour. Bards who once only sang the victories of leaders began to sing of women too, and to please the women listening. That shift sounds small, but it is not. It was the slow start of seeing half of humanity in a different way. You can feel the same change in the manners of the hall, softer and kinder. With this new respect for women came greater care in behaviour, especially around the dining table where everyone gathered. A whole literature of etiquette arose, guiding how a well-bred person should behave. Most of it centred on the presence of ladies. Let me show you what a meal looked like in such a hall, so you can sense how it worked. The table was one long board. Guests sat along it, not in chaos, but carefully paired, every man beside a woman. Pairing them was a true art, as you'll see. Before anyone ate, a clear horn call rang through the room. It was the signal to wash hands, and at the sound servants brought bowls and water jugs. Ladies were always served first. Then the food was brought in large earthenware dishes laid along the table, and this made the pairing matter. There were no plates as we know them. Each pair shared one. They ate from the same wide bread soaked with meat juices. They passed the same cup between them to drink. A careful host would rack his brains over who should sit next to whom. Sharing a cup and bread with someone you cannot stand would be a small torment during a long meal. The ceremonies could be many, but the eating was simpler. There were no forks at all. People ate with fingers and their own knives, which might be the same knife the man carried on his belt for other purposes. There were no napkins as we understand them. Guests wiped hands and mouths on cloths spread on the table and cleaned their knives on the bread. The wide bread that replaced plates was not eaten in the end. It was collected with the crumbs soaked in the meal's tasty broth. This was given to the poor waiting outside the gates. Nothing was wasted. Rugged charity folded into the meal's design. It was entering such a world that these etiquette manuals appeared, teaching young men how to behave at a meal like this. Do not grab. Do not keep the best piece for yourself, but offer it to the lady beside you. Do not talk with your mouth full, nor wipe greasy hands on your neighbour. Do not put your previously bitten food back onto the shared plate. These sound like rules for children, and in a way, they were. A whole class of fierce young men was being patiently and slowly taught gentleness. The lessons had to be written down, telling you how fresh this gentleness was. These booklets did not only guide men, they turned just as carefully to ladies. A well-bred woman was taught how to walk so that she neither hurried nor let her eyes wander around the room. She learned how to speak with restraint and how to receive guests. She learned to hold herself with a quiet dignity that never forced respect but earned it. This says a lot. A society does not bother writing down how women should act and speak without reason. It only does so when it has decided that women's behaviour truly matters. A lady has become an important figure, worth shaping by rules for everything she says and does. The very existence of these patient little rules is, in a way, another small tribute to her. That kind of arrangement carries a softness I find easy to like. It turns every meal into a polite small exercise, a practice in caring for the person beside you, in sharing a gentle matter. The rough warriors of ancient songs would be stunned if they saw this. Here is a world teaching its fierce young men to hand cups carefully and offer the best piece of food. It teaches them manners before ladies, as if such things truly mattered. And in their world, they increasingly did. I will not pretend knights were saints. They were not, and the singers described them frankly enough. This same freedom that lets a man honour a lady in song also makes both sexes freer to mingle. A stricter age would never allow such a thing. Hearts can wander. The shiny service in verse does not always match real life. There would be entanglements, foolish acts, and hidden scandals. The muddy reality of ordinary people that no amount of beautiful songs can erase. That era knew all this, shrugged, and kept singing of perfect devotion. We need not fixate on those flaws. Knowing they existed is enough. Just beneath that bright surface, as they do beneath every bright surface. Take all this together, and something real remains. In this world, people looked at women differently than they did at their grandmothers. She was sung about, served, placed at the centre of stories. Her favour was worth crossing a country to win. Her place at the table was one of honour, first to be served, cared for, given the better share. None of this made the world just, kind, or fair to women as we would have wished. It was a softening, an elevation, a slight turning of the light toward her. After that, the harsh old world was never quite so harsh again. Before we let the fire go out, one more thing is worth saying. This gentleness did not stay put in the warm south where it began. It spread. The harsher northern countryside, though it never liked southern ways, could not help but absorb them. Its own singers learned the new approach, began singing not just battle songs but also for ladies, to the ears of ladies. A whole rougher land slowly and slightly softened, guided by the example set by the sunlit land often looked down on. This might be their gentlest conquest in history. The South lost nearly everything in the end, except for this, a small, warm idea that a woman was worth singing about. The hall is quiet now. The meal has long been cleared away, the cups empty. The knight who fought today in the name of a lady has put away his sword. Now, like the others, he listens to the last music. The carefully paired couples have broken up. People sit casually where they please, sleepy but content. We will leave them in that warm and ordinary peace, those fierce men learning gentleness, those highly respected women. We will turn the fire down low and watch night fall on these ancient stones. The singer has now left, walking into the night, following the path toward another hall waiting for him. This night is not over yet. When a great singer departs, he leaves something behind in the room, a yearning for stories. The household is not ready to part and go to bed. The fire in the hearth still burns brightly, the night is still young, and there is a story that everyone half understands and gladly wants to hear once more. Someone asks for the story, like requesting a familiar song. An older voice in the hall takes up the cue. Slowly, he begins to tell the story that forms the heart of the entire singing world. Let me tell you that story, the way they should have told it here beside the slowly dying fire. This is the greatest love story of their time. It was told in 100 halls in 100 ways. No two retellings were exactly the same, but that did not matter. Everyone knew the outline. It was the standard by which all other love stories were measured. It begins with a name, as the saddest stories often do. The hero's name was Tristan, a name folded with sorrow itself. He was born amid grief and given a name that carried that grief. He grew up under the care of his uncle, a king who ruled a northern kingdom by cold seas. As time passed, the king wished to marry. His eyes turned to a princess across the sea, known for her beauty and golden hair. The king sent his nephew Tristan to that distant land to bring her back as the king's queen. Now, fate's gears began to turn, and you must see both halves together. Tristan had visited that country long ago, carrying an unhealed wound. It was this princess, skilled in ancient healing arts, who cared for him and made him well. He had not forgotten her. She had not forgotten him. Between them, something faint had begun, set aside and never spoken. Now he came again, not for himself, but to take her away to marry another man, his uncle and king. When he requested her from her father, there was a brief, sorrowful moment. He asked plainly for the princess, and said she was not for him, but for his king. Her father looked at this brave young man, and said he would rather give his daughter to Tristan himself than to any other man on earth. Tristan did not hear this. He had made a promise to his uncle, and that promise meant everything. Out of pure honour, He turned away from the thing he wanted most in his heart. He was ready to take the golden-haired lady back to become another man's wife. On the long voyage home, the princess was entrusted to his care. Her mother, unaware of what was to come, prepared a gift for her to take away. It was a secret thing made for the wedding night. A drink, a cup of magic water. Anyone who shared it with the one they loved would love that person completely throughout their life, with a love nothing else could erase. It was meant for the bride and king, to bind them sweetly after their marriage. You can feel where the story is headed, and everyone in that firelit hall can feel it too. That is part of its charm. On the ship, during the long, dull days at sea, by a careless mistake, the wrong two people drank that cup. The ones who shared it were Tristan and the princess, not the king. They drank it unaware of what it was. The magic immediately took hold of them both. From that moment, they loved each other with a love beyond their own choice and beyond their own power to resist. The storyteller always carefully clarifies this part. No matter what happened afterward, it was not their fault. They were trapped by a magic they never asked for. That cup of water had already decided their hearts before they had a say. This is what makes the story bearable and not just sad. These lovers are not evil. They are enchanted. They are two good people caught by a force far stronger than themselves. They carry a secret they cannot let go or act upon, bound to each other but pledged to others. The ship docked. The princess, on her mission, married the king. A long and silent pain began, and that is the true heart of the story. Now Tristan had to live near the one he loved irrationally, never able to have her or show it. She was his uncle's wife, the queen. Every law of that world, every oath he had sworn, stood between them. The magic cared nothing for these. It just went on year after year, like an undying fire burning between two who could neither be together nor truly apart. They could steal as little as possible, a glance, a word, some stolen moments, always with fear, always with sorrow. It was a love that caused far more pain than joy. They could not end it, any more than they could stop breathing. This hidden sadness lasted a long time. There was suspicion, daring escapes, uneasy truces broken again. Sometimes the king became certain, and Tristan had to flee for his life. Sometimes they reconciled, the danger eased, and the silent ache began again. Tristan grew into the wider world of knights, winning great renown. He came to the court of the most famous king in all ancient legend, alongside companions whose names every listener knew. Once, the lovers even ran away together, like any ordinary couple, living in the greenwoods for a while. A great and gentle knight sheltered them in his castle, until another truce returned the lady to her husband. This could not last. It became too dangerous. Tristan was finally driven away, forced into exile far from her, across the seas to another land. Here is something I've always found very gentle. But first, speak of his sorrow. The grief so heavy that for a time he lost his mind. He went mad with longing, wandering into dense forest, living like a wild man, ragged and almost unrecognizable. Later he was found and brought, unrecognized, into the household of the king and lady he loved deeply. No one recognized this naked, broken wanderer as the once famous knight. Only a little dog did. Through the years, the princess had kept a small hunting dog she was given by Tristan in the sweet days of their love. The little creature came to the stranger, sniffed him, and immediately knew him, joyfully rushing to him. The lady saw this and understood. Her heart tumbled in her chest. In the end, it was a little dog's loyal memory that recognized him when no one else could. After this, in that distant land, lonely and sorrowful, Tristan met another woman. She was gentle, kind, truly loved him, and by a curious coincidence, her name was almost the same as the love he had lost. She even had healing powers. Tristan, weary and far from home, perhaps half hoping he might finally love a simple, possible love, married her. But he could not give her his heart. His heart was already given wholly to another, the one far across the sea. This second lady, this kind and loyal wife, lived beside a husband whose heart was elsewhere. She did not know it all, and for a time was content with the little she had. You will notice there are no villains in all this. Just people loving in the wrong place or loving unreturned. They were all trapped in a web none had woven. Now the ending comes, and I will tell it gently because it is a tender and sad thing. Over time, Tristan was gravely wounded far from the one he loved. He knew only she, with her old healing arts, could save him. He sent a ship across the sea to bring her, carrying a message and a signal. If she was on the ship sailing toward him, the sail would be white for the return. If she refused to come, it would be black. He waited silently, too weak to rise, looking often to the sea, listening to the waves' news. She came. Of course she came. She set out at once, white sail billowing, rushing to him. She blamed every slow wind and every wave for keeping her from reaching his side. The second wife now knew where her husband's heart had always been. As the ship neared, the white sail shone bright against the sky, and a great bitterness rose in her heart. Too weak to see for himself, Tristan asked loudly what colour the sail was. Through grief and jealousy, she told him the one lie that would destroy them all. Black, she said. The sail was black. Hearing this, his last strength left him. He had only waited for her, and now he thought she had not come. So quietly, without struggle, he passed away just as the ship he could not see, with its white sail, entered the harbour below. The princess landed, crossed the streets, and a soft crying drifted toward her. She followed the sound to where he lay. She found he was gone, lay silently beside him, holding him, letting her life follow his. They could never be together in their long lives. In the last moment, they were together. In death, the story finally gave them peace, side by side. The only place the world would leave them. No matter how you tell it, the story is roughly like that. It sank so deeply into these people's hearts that the two names became a measure. Long afterward, when people wanted a way to express absolute loyalty and love that endured all hardships, they thought of these two. People would say they were loyal to each other, like Tristan and Isolde. Those names became a synonym, a shorthand for devotion itself. The whole era, without deciding, clearly agreed. This was the truest picture of love it had. When the last words fade, the hall falls quiet for a moment. If the storyteller is wise enough, he will say something to ease the weight a little, then let people sleep. He will remind them it is only a story after all. Perhaps the most beautiful one they have, but still a story. No real woman was ever quite like that golden-haired princess, and no true love could ever be that fated and pure. The men in that hall know in their ordinary hearts their own loves were never so grand, and never so tragic. The women know this too, and for that reason they love this story even more, because it is bigger than their lives. As time passed, even in this world that worshipped such stories, a gentle doubt grew. The greatest romances began to feel thin. People heard so many tales of perfect, golden-haired, doomed heroines that no new one could quicken the heart. Some quietly preferred simpler stories of more ordinary women who loved, argued, and handled their households as women they actually knew did. The dream did not die. It just settled into its rightful place beside daylight, no longer mistaken for daylight itself. On a night like this, by a cluster of hearth fires, that old dream was still allowed its full power. No one wanted to be ordinary or sane. Maybe that is why they told it again and again by the fire. Not because it was true, but for the story's own magic. It gathered up all the longing in those long love songs and gave it a shape you could hold. It let them feel one night that love could be so vast, so loyal. It could surpass any ordinary day's limits. The fire now is very faint. The story is over. Around the hall, heads begin to nod off, some already asleep. the story still drifting somewhere behind closed eyes. The storyteller's voice drops so low it's almost inaudible. Nothing more to say, nothing left to wait for. Only warm darkness, glowing embers, and the slow, steady breathing of a room letting go of the day's weariness. We will leave them in this gentle quiet, letting the old story, like a guide, carry them, and us, into dreams. We quietly welcomed the end of the evening in the warm south. Standing by the gate in the twilight, we watched a singer climb a hillside. We'd heard him praise a lady who was part real and part dream. We'd been in a softly cushioned room, watching great women pass judgment on feelings deep inside. We saw knights enter the jousting field carrying a small piece of silk, and we listened to an ancient sad story by a dying fire. It was a tiny world, with some foolish spots, yet surprisingly gentle. Everyone in that story has been gone for 800 years. Tonight, I find myself wanting to leave a quiet moment of remembrance for them, for the singers who poured their lives into songs long scattered by the wind, for the ladies praised so highly yet forgotten so completely, for the unknown voices by countless fires that kept those old tales alive through telling again and again. Like us, they only wanted a little bit of kindness, a touch of tenderness, something to guard against the dark. They are not as far from us as time seems to show. The warmth they longed for now belongs to you. The same soft darkness, the same settled calm, the same day finally set aside. Tonight, you have nothing you need to do, know where you must be. Just stay right here where you are and let everything settle down. If anything in this story sticks with you, a small image, a simple phrase, I sincerely invite you to leave a few words below. Any time is fine, or you might choose to say nothing at all. Tell me where you listen tonight or which corner of that ancient world you wish to linger in a little longer. No rush. All this can wait until morning if you choose to write at all. This little channel shares slow stories like this, made for quiet nights just like the one you're having now. We plan to continue wandering gently through different times. There will be many more medieval evenings and peaceful days from ancient Egypt, long afternoons in classic Greece and many other places to come. If these journeys help you rest, you are warmly welcome to join us. You can grow older with us, slowly falling asleep in one calm story after another. We are deeply grateful that you choose to spend this part of your night here. None of that matters now. What matters is you feeling endless warmth. The day is over, and you no longer carry any burdens. The fire in the ancient hall is burning low. The singer has walked far down his road. The lovers in the story have found their resting place, and you soon will too. Let your thoughts settle. Let the warm south gently fade into darkness behind your closed eyes. There is nothing left to do or know. Sleep well. We will be here whenever you need, with another quiet story to share.